The National Electrical Code, specifically Section 210.70 addresses lighting outlet requirements in habitable rooms and bathrooms. This section states that at least one wall switch-controlled lighting outlet or luminaire shall be installed in every habitable room and bathroom. Let's consider scenarios involving smart home systems and group switch locations to determine compliance. Regarding a smart home controller with a manual override, if the smart house controller has a manual override that provides control of the lighting from a wall-mounted location, it would satisfy the requirement of 210.70 A manual override allows for direct tactile control of the lighting in case of power failure or remote control malfunction. In the event of a power outage or a failure of the smart home system, the manual override ensures that occupants can still control the lighting in the room. The manual override needs to be readily accessible and located on a wall similar to a traditional light switch. Now let's analyze the situation where all wall switches are grouped in one location, such as a closet. Grouping all wall switches in one location, such as a closet, would not satisfy the requirement of 210.70 The purpose of the wall switch requirement is to provide convenient and readily accessible control of the lighting from within the room. Grouping switches in a remote location would not provide this functionality. The intent of the code is that the switch is readily available upon entering a room. Placing them in a closet or other out-of-the-way location defeats that purpose. Therefore, concentrating all the switches in a single remote location is not an acceptable solution. The best solution would be to install a manual override for the smart house controller in a wall-mounted location in each habitable room and bathroom. This would ensure compliance with 210.70 while still allowing for the use of remote control devices for lighting control. This approach provides the convenience of smart home control while also meeting the code's safety requirements. To reiterate, firstly, a smart home controller with a wall-mounted manual override can satisfy the NEC requirement. Secondly, grouping all switches in a remote location, such as a closet, does not satisfy the NEC requirement. And thirdly, the recommended solution is to install individual wall-mounted manual overrides for the smart home system in each room. Compliance with the National Electrical Code is essential for ensuring electrical safety and functionality in buildings. When dealing with smart home systems, it is important to consider how these systems interact with the NEC requirements. In the case of lighting control, the NEC mandates that at least one wall switch-controlled lighting outlet or luminaire be installed in every habitable room and bathroom. The purpose of this requirement is to provide occupants with a readily accessible means of controlling the lighting in a room, even in the event of a power outage or malfunction of the smart home system. A smart home controller with a manual override that is located on a wall and provides direct control of the lighting in the room will satisfy the NEC requirement. The manual override should be designed to function independently of the smart home system so that it can be used to turn the lights on or off regardless of the system's status. If the manual override is not located on a wall or does not provide direct control of the lighting, it will not satisfy the NEC requirement. Grouping all of the wall switches in a remote location, such as a closet, will not satisfy the NEC requirement. The switches must be located in a readily accessible location within the room so that occupants can easily turn the lights on or off. Installing a manual override for the smart home controller in a wall-mounted location in each habitable room and bathroom is the best way to ensure compliance with the NEC while still allowing for the use of remote control devices for lighting control. This approach provides occupants with the convenience of smart home control while also ensuring that they have a readily accessible means of controlling the lighting in the room in the event of an emergency. It is important to note that the NEC is a minimum standard and that local jurisdictions may have additional requirements. It is always best to consult with a qualified electrical inspector to ensure that your electrical work complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Consider a scenario where a homeowner desires a minimalist aesthetic and requests the omission of wall switches in favor of a smart home lighting system controlled by handheld remote units. While such a design might appeal to the homeowner's aesthetic preferences, it is crucial to ensure that it complies with the NEC. The NEC requires at least one wall switch-controlled lighting outlet or luminaire in every habitable room and bathroom. This requirement is not merely a design preference but a safety measure intended to provide occupants with a readily accessible means of controlling lighting, particularly in emergency situations. If the smart home system relies solely on remote controls, it may not meet the NEC requirements. What happens if the remote controls malfunction, are lost, or the system experiences a power outage? In such scenarios, occupants would be left without a means of controlling the lighting, which could pose a safety hazard. A manual override built into the smart home controller can address this concern. If the manual override allows occupants to control the lighting directly from a wall-mounted location, it can satisfy the NEC requirement. The manual override should be easily accessible and clearly labeled so that occupants can quickly locate and use it in an emergency. Grouping all wall switches in one location, such as a closet, is not an acceptable solution. The intent of the NEC is to provide convenient and readily accessible lighting control within each room, not to consolidate all switches in a remote or inconvenient location. To ensure compliance with the NEC and provide occupants with a safe and functional lighting system, it is recommended to install a manual override for the smart home controller in a wall-mounted location in each habitable room and bathroom. This approach allows for the desired aesthetic while also meeting the code's safety requirements. Imagine a scenario in a modern home where the owner values aesthetics and seamless integration of technology above all else. They envision a lighting system that is entirely controlled by a smart home hub accessible through voice commands and mobile apps, eliminating the need for traditional wall switches. While this concept aligns with the homeowner's design aspirations, it presents a challenge when it comes to complying with established electrical codes. The National Electrical Code Section 210.70 mandates the presence of at least one wall switch-controlled lighting outlet or luminaire in every habitable room and bathroom. This requirement is not arbitrary. It is rooted in safety and practicality. Wall switches provide a reliable and readily accessible means of controlling lighting, especially in situations where technology fails or becomes unavailable. A power outage, a malfunctioning smart home hub, or a dead mobile phone battery can render a voice-controlled or app-based lighting system useless, leaving occupants in darkness. In such circumstances, a traditional wall switch becomes a critical safety feature. Now, let's explore potential solutions that bridge the gap between the homeowner's desire for a switchless design and the code's insistence on a wall switch. Firstly, consider the use of a smart switch with a manual override. These switches can be integrated into the smart home system, allowing for control via voice commands and mobile apps, but they also feature a physical button or toggle that functions as a traditional wall switch. This provides a backup option in case of system failure and satisfies the code requirement for a wall switch-controlled lighting outlet. The manual override should be easily accessible and clearly identifiable, so that occupants can quickly locate and use it in an emergency. Secondly, explore the possibility of using a wireless switch. These switches can be mounted on the wall without the need for traditional wiring, offering a cleaner aesthetic. They communicate wirelessly with the smart home hub to control the lighting. However, it is crucial to ensure that the wireless switch is reliable and has a long battery life. It should also be tested regularly to verify that it is functioning properly. Thirdly, consider the option of a hidden switch. This involves concealing the wall switch behind a removable panel or inside a cabinet. While this approach maintains a clean aesthetic, it is important to ensure that the switch is easily accessible and that occupants are aware of its location. The hidden switch should not be placed in a location that is difficult to reach or that could be obstructed by furniture or other objects. Grouping all wall switches in one location, such as a closet, is generally not an acceptable solution. The intent of the code is to provide convenient and readily accessible lighting control within each room, not to consolidate all switches in a remote or inconvenient location. The switches should be located near the entrance of the room so that occupants can easily turn on the lights as they enter. Regardless of the chosen solution, it is essential to consult with a qualified electrician and local building officials to ensure that the lighting system complies with all applicable codes and regulations. It is also important to educate the homeowner about the importance of the wall switch requirement and to demonstrate how the chosen solution meets both their aesthetic preferences and the code's safety requirements. Imagine a scenario where a building owner wants to implement a centralized lighting control system in a commercial space to improve energy efficiency and provide greater flexibility in managing lighting levels. The system would allow facility managers to remotely control and monitor lighting throughout the building, adjust lighting schedules based on occupancy patterns, and dim or turn off lights in unoccupied areas. While such a system offers significant benefits in terms of energy savings and operational efficiency, it is essential to ensure that it complies with the relevant electrical codes, particularly the NEC requirements for lighting control. The NEC Section 210.70 A1 mandates the presence of at least one wall switch-controlled lighting outlet or luminaire in every habitable room and bathroom. This requirement applies not only to residential buildings but also to commercial and industrial spaces. The purpose of the wall switch requirement is to provide occupants with a reliable and readily accessible means of controlling lighting, especially in emergency situations or when the centralized control system is unavailable. In a commercial building with a centralized lighting control system, the wall switch requirement can be met in several ways. Firstly, each lighting zone or area can be equipped with a local wall switch that allows occupants to manually override the centralized control system and turn the lights on or off as needed. The wall switch should be easily accessible and clearly labeled so that occupants can quickly locate and use it in an emergency. Secondly, the centralized control system can be designed with a manual override feature that allows facility managers to remotely activate all the wall switches in the building. This feature can be used in the event of a system failure or during emergencies, such as power outages or fires. Thirdly, the centralized control system can be programmed to automatically activate the wall switches in the event of a power outage. This ensures that occupants have access to lighting even when the centralized control system is unavailable. In addition to the wall switch requirement, the NEC also includes requirements for emergency lighting in commercial buildings. Emergency lighting must be provided in areas such as exit corridors, stairwells, and assembly spaces to ensure that occupants can safely evacuate the building in the event of a power outage or other emergency. The emergency lighting system must be designed to operate independently of the normal lighting system and must be powered by a reliable backup power source such as a generator or batteries. When implementing a centralized lighting control system in a commercial building, it is essential to consult with a qualified electrical engineer and local building officials to ensure that the system complies with all applicable codes and regulations. It is also important to provide training to facility managers and occupants on how to use the centralized control system and the wall switches, and to conduct regular testing and maintenance of the system to ensure that it is functioning properly.